Hey everybody, Sean from Media Assault here, and it's time for the second part of my Batman series. I started this about 2 weeks ago. I'm going to be reviewing all of the Batman movies from 1989 to 2008, leading up to the release of The Dark Knight Rises in July. So these are not going to be on any set schedule or anything. You can check for my review of the 1989 Batman, which is already posted, and then sometime in the future I'll move on and do Batman Forever from 1995. But for right now, I'm going to be reviewing Batman Returns from 1992. This is notable as it is, of course, the first sequel to the original 1989 Batman. It's also notable because it is the last one of these movies that is directed by Tim Burton. It's also the last of the movies to feature Michael Keaton as Batman Bruce Wayne. Coming 3 years after the 1989 Batman, which was a huge success, there was pressure to sort of, I guess, duplicate the success, obviously, but Batman was so notable because it had the on-screen presence of Jack Nicholson as the Joker. So I guess to substitute for that, they decided to do two supervillains in Batman Returns. You have Danny Devito coming in to play the Penguin and Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. The plot gets a little more convoluted as a result of having these two separate not only origin stories for the villains, but then of course they have to have some sort of motivation to fight Batman, and Batman needs to get involved with them. And that comes in the guise of Christopher Walken as yet another villain, although not necessarily a supervillain, Max Schreck, who is sort of this retail CEO with a dastardly vision for building this power plant that is actually going to suck power from Gotham City rather than produce power for Gotham City, and he calls it his legacy. So the film starts out with Penguin and his origin story. We learn how he was created, more or less, and then the film flashes forward 33 years, and we see Penguin revealing himself to the citizens of Gotham City. He's been more or less an urban legend, kind of something lurking in the sewers, and when he kind of comes out of the sewers, he kidnaps Max Schreck and lets him know that Penguin knows about this plot to build this power station. Penguin takes his time and tries to cultivate this sort of sympathetic image for himself, looking for his parents from 33 years ago and whatnot. But what really happens is Schreck, trying to keep the Penguin on his good side, or keep himself on Penguin's good side, he comes up with a plan to dispose of the current mayor by doing a recount and proposing Penguin as the replacement candidate because of the sympathetic feelings that the citizens of Gotham have toward this basically creature who is looking for his parents. And there's a couple of other elements to the plot that I won't give away, but basically the citizens of Gotham City feel sorry for the Penguin, and Schreck wants to use that to his advantage and make the Penguin the mayor so he can get his power station built. Schreck has a secretary named Selina Kyle, and Selina Kyle is played by Michelle Pfeiffer. She discovers Schreck's plot to build this power station, and when Schreck finds out that she knows about it, he just throws her out a window, sort of unceremoniously. And through some weird cat power, I guess, she's brought back to life by these cats, and she suddenly becomes a complete 180-degree turn from her former self, where she was sort of shy and withdrawn and very timid. She now becomes this sexually charged, confident, very strong female character. She goes ahead and she makes herself a suit that's very skin tight, and she becomes Catwoman. Catwoman and Penguin eventually team up, more or less in a very tenuous type of, I wouldn't say friendship, but it's sort of a mutually beneficial partnership for at least part of the movie. You may have noticed I haven't really mentioned Batman yet, And that's the main problem with Batman Returns, at least as I see it, is that Batman has sort of been pushed to the background. Because you've got two supervillains instead of one, and you're concentrating on two origin stories plus the whole Shrek subplot, there's not a whole lot of time for Batman, and this movie only runs a little over 2 hours. So where a lot of superhero movies, at least of today, will go 2.5 hours, this one kind of crams a lot of stuff into just over 2 hours. And it suffers for it. The Batman character suffers for it. Michael Keaton does a really good job in the role. I think he does a better job in the Bruce Wayne Batman character in Batman Returns than he does in Batman. But of course, there's not that much of him on screen. There are a couple of references to the original movie, like what happened between Bruce Wayne and Vicky Vale, and there's a little nudge at Alfred for letting Vicky Vale into the Batcave in the first film, which was a point of contention for a lot of fans, that Alfred would do that, jeopardize the whole Batman character. And I like that aspect of the film, that it was able to Tim Burton was able to kind of poke fun at his original film. But really, this film ends up being less than the sum of its parts. I like Keaton as Batman, Bruce Wayne. I really like Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, Selena Kyle. I like Devito as the Penguin, even though he's really unpleasant, and he's not real easy to look at a lot of the times when he's chewing fish and he's got this black spit coming out of his mouth constantly. Visually, I like what the film looks like. The cinematography is great. The sets for Gotham City, even though they look like they were filmed in a studio, they still got that unique blend that carries over from the first film of different time periods and looks. I really like that. But when you add it all up, it just does not add up to what I would consider a great superhero movie, much less a great Batman movie. And whereas I was disappointed by the original Batman the first and second time I watched it, and then found myself liking it the third time, this was the third time that I've seen Batman Returns, and I still feel the same way about it that I did the first two times I watched it, that it's better paced than the original in terms of, there's not so much up and down stuff going on plot-wise. It's got a good pace, keeps you on your toes through the whole thing. It's just that I have too many questions about the motivation of the characters, why they're doing the things that they're doing. There's a subplot for the Penguin that starts off at the beginning. You see him preparing for it. He doesn't roll it out till the end, and it's sort of like an afterthought. Like they were going to go down one path and decided, well, we should probably use that, rather than you going, oh yeah, what's he going to do? What's he going to do? You don't really care, because everything gets lost with everything else that's going on. So I think that's the main problem with Batman Returns, is as a result of having those two supervillains and less Batman, it's just much less focused. Even though it's better paced than the original, it just doesn't have that same drive that the original had. And even though Catwoman and Penguin are two good characters, they're not as strong as the Joker from the first one. And ultimately, this just ends up being a lesser movie for me. I know a lot of people like this one better than the first one. Why that is specifically, I'm not sure, but I just really could not get into it as much as I enjoyed the first one. The second one just leaves a little bit more to be desired. So it's not a terrible film by any means. It's just not as good as the first one. So I'm going to give Batman Returns a 6.5 out of 10. That's really all I have to say about Batman Returns from 1992. That's the front of the Blu-ray, and there is the back of the Blu-ray. And this is from the Batman anthology set that Warner Brothers released a few years ago. And I highly recommend picking it up. So far, all of the movies have looked really good. So there you go. Stay tuned for my review of Batman Forever, which will actually be the first time I've watched it since I saw it in the theater in 1995. I'm really looking forward to watching it. Stay tuned for that review, which will be coming up at some point between now and July 20th, but I'm sure it'll be a lot sooner than that. So thanks again for watching, everybody. Take it easy.